Hello everyone. These 6 beds here were my flower beds this summer, and I've been clearing them out. This first one was my sunflowers, and I spoke on a previous video about how sunflowers I'd found out this year are allelopathic, which means they will actually kill other plants in its vicinity or impede its growth. When I pulled them out, because there's no dig, I didn't go massively digging to get all the roots out. I'd left some in, and I wanted to know if the roots I'd left in would have that same effect on the next crop. So I planted a load of brassicas, 2 types of spring cabbage and a cauliflower. They all appear to be doing well, so I don't think at this stage that they have any effect on the following crop. Also doing a bit of a broad bean trial here, because over the years you develop your own ways and methods of growing things, and I prefer here to grow my broad beans, and I've got the same sort of setup here but in my hot box at the front of the plot, because here in the winter we get devastated by winds. They either come in from that direction or from that direction, and they will, or they should, knacker these plants. Quite unseasonably warm at the minute, and these broad beans appear to be doing well. They need tied into these canes. I will protect them a little bit, but I just want to go back to basics and see if there's anything I'm missing by just planting them out as normal, like the most of the rest of the country do. As I say, I've developed it further and I grow them in hot box. Be interesting as a comparison later in the season to see if we get a harvest from these and what it's like in comparison to the protected ones. And the rest of these beds are now clear. Still got this Rebecca here, and I couldn't bring myself to clear these out last week because they were still nice and bright and happy, but I'm going to sort these out today, and I want to try to overwinter them. I've tried it before in the ground here, but again here we get very waterlogged. It's Cumbria, rains all the time, and they generally rot in the ground for me. It's worked in my garden at home, so I'm going to try, now that they're in raised beds, to see if I can overwinter them. So that's the next job, and the last one to do on these flower beds for this winter. So now we've got you positioned here, all I'm going to do is remove this foliage first, and I'm going to cut this off 12 inches from the base. Now I know there's going to be weed in here, and I want to differentiate between what's weed and what's plant. But if I remove most of this foliage first, I'll be able to see what I've actually got in here. This foliage can all get chopped up and go on the compost heap. And then once I've cut all these down and cleared the way a bit, then I'll be able to come in, do any weeding, any of the things like thistles or nettles or anything like that, remove that, and then I can cut these stems a bit lower down and then mulch them over, and that should protect them until next spring. So with these plants pruned back now, I'm going to take some of the old rubbishy thin bits of cane that you never use and just mark the location of every plant that's in there, just so I know moving forward where each plant is. And then I can mulch over those plants, trim these stems further back, and we should be good to go. What I am left with, of course, is a big barrow full here of material to go in a compost heap, which is always a blessing. So what about these 3 empty beds? Well, these have been cleared mostly of weed. There's still a little bit in here. I can see a couple of patches over there, and I'll clear those. But what I'm intending to do with these is to plant field beans in these 3. And I've had a bit of a supply issue in that I ordered them back in August, and the company that was supplying the company that I ordered a bulk amount from were having germination issues with the crop. Anyway, I believe they should be with me this week. I think I've got about 5 or 6 pound of them coming. So I'll get these planted up, and they will take nitrogen from the air and they'll fix it into the ground. and give these beds a good start for next year. And it's still not too late to sow them, so you can get them and you can sow them up until the end of this month. I will double indemnify myself. I will plant some in modules in the polytunnels or in the ground that I can transplant later, but we'll get these planted up. And there's 2 more loose areas in the beds up there. Want the whole lot working over the winter if possible, but we'll see how that goes. So that's the intention with this. If I wasn't going to plant this, I would just leave the soil as it is and work the surface once a week, come over with a hoe, just hoe the top off, because even through the winter, in mild periods, weeds will grow, they'll get the roots down, and that's what you want to avoid. So if you take them off when they're nice and small with a hoe, you'll stop them getting in and using up those nutrients and becoming a pest next spring. So that's another way you can do it. You can cover the beds if you want to, and that works really well as well. And it's probably what I'll do over there with my dahlia beds when I've done those, because I won't be replanting them, because I need to work on those next spring. So that's what we're doing with this, and then that's this 6 beds done. Then I can move on, dig up my dahlias and sort out the rest of the flower area. As I'm clearing every one of the flower beds out the back, it's all been chopped up, including the weeds, minus the roots, and it's all going in here. And I've just spent 10 minutes now ripping up some cardboard and paper, putting the next layer on because the last layer was green, and I've wet that down, and we're going to chop up those Rudbeckia now and get those in here. So this is half of that Rudbeckia waste that I collected out there, and what I want to do now is just chop my way into it, just to chop it down, break it up. Something like that will eventually compost down if you throw it on your compost heap, but if you break it up into these smaller bits by chopping it, you've got a bigger surface area for the microbes to work on. Therefore, more microbes, more heat, and your compost will compost quicker and more efficiently if it gets to a hot heat. And the added benefit is if there's any weed seed in there, it will kill them as well. So just chop it all up as small as you can. Spend 5 minutes doing each little barrow, and it'll pay you back later on by giving you good compost. And you can see now it's already fairly small. The stuff at the bottom hasn't yet been touched. Turn it over, get it all nice and small. Say spend 5 minutes on each barrow and it will pay you back later. So I've spent about probably no more than 3 minutes chopping this up, and you can see it's all down to a much smaller size. There are some bigger pieces in it, but my way of thinking is by putting it in like that, you're leaving air gaps in between, which your compost also needs. And later on, if those bigger pieces don't break down, they will in the soil, and that will further feed your soil. So I'm just going to chuck this in now. And go and get the next barrow. So that's what we're looking like now. And what I'll do after this is I'll perhaps put a layer of wood chip in, then a layer of grass, and then some more cardboard, and then some more green waste, and just keep stacking it up, watering as I go, and then let nature take its course. So with that layer of green added, just gonna wet this down, and then it'll be ready for the next layer, wherever I choose that might be. Or I can just cover it up and go back home. These beds were new this year in spring, and I've got them all done, filled up, sowed the seeds and planted a load of flowers in here. Through the season, harvested the flowers, took them home and enjoyed them. End of the season, ripped them out, chopped them up and compost them, so they're still doing me good, and that compost will do me good next spring for sowing the flower seeds for in here. The green manure seeds, the green beans, will add nitrogen to the soil through the roots. The foliage will be chopped off, they'll go in the compost heap. These plants here will be protected, ready for next year with compost. These plants will grow on and I'll get a harvest. All the tops will be chopped off, go in the compost heap. The brassicas over there will be either eaten or composted, so that the cycle goes on and it's continuous. And that's why I want these beds working at all times. So this is how the process works. Sow the seeds, grow the plants, harvest the plants, compost the plants. From that compost, sow more plants, and you keep that continuous cycle going by keeping your beds working. But anyway, that's it for today. Please look after yourselves, everyone, and stay safe. And I'll see you all in a few days. Take care now. Bye bye.